knew what we did make it here. My name is Kenny Beach. This is Liz Beach. This is little Doherty over here.
I'm Kim Griffiths. This is my brother Scott. He helps me with the car. And, we've been racing up here for a couple years with this car, and then about 5 years ago with another car.
Curtis Sawyer, Water Springs, Kansas. Been racing about 9 years.
Live in Olathe, Kansas. There, I've been racing up here probably close to 10 years, I expect.
I'm Charlie Dawson. Coming up here for 15 years racing this little drag strip. Had a lot of fun, won a lot of money. I sure hate to see it go.
I'm Robert Cook, and I've been racing here for about 12 years. Gardner, Kansas.
My name's Kirby, and this is my pit man here, Mike. Good buddy here, Ross. And I've been racing here for about 2 years now.
My name, Kurt McMillan, home Kansas. Little place. You never heard of it, don't feel it. Been racing 7 seasons.
Marty Hastert. I'm from Lecompton, Kansas now. I used to live in Lawrence. And I've been coming out here probably since '74, but I've only been racing probably the last 6 years out here.
Well, my name's Marty Hastert. I was born and raised in Lawrence, Kansas. And when I first went out to drag strip, I was probably in 7th grade, probably 1970, with some friends of mine. And it seemed like it was on Sunday afternoons back then for some reason. And it wasn't until probably 1979, 78, I finally bought a race car, 67 Chevelle, something like this, but it was dark blue. Me and my brother built it, raced it. Then later on, probably I did that for 3 or 4 years. Around 1982, 81, I bought this car, and we put a bigger motor in it, and we raced up till the last day of the drag strip was around 1986, that summer. And went to Kansas City, had a quarter-mile track that I went to a few times. They had summer races up there. And me and my buddies went up there and had a good time. That's all it was about, having a good time. Yeah, as far as I know, there was only 2 owners for the Lawrence Dragway. One was a guy from Topeka, and I can't recall his name, but the last owner was DeLon Joseph, who lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and had a couple of guys that helped him run it. So on Saturdays, they usually opened the gates at 11 o'clock, and my brother and I and some friends would always try to get there first because there was only one shade tree on the pit side, and believe me, when it's 100 degrees in July, you try to find the best place to park underneath the tree. And of course, we always made sure our beer was on ice. That was one of the major things. He got some big names out there. Don Garlis was there, Gene Snow, Top Fuel drivers, which back then, the only time you could see them is if you went to California to the big race. Kansas City, when they started having their Top Fuel events back in the early 80s, maybe around 80, you could go up there and watch him once a year in July, but he had a jet engine car out there one time. It blew the fence down because all the thrust out of the motor. On a big race day, it cost me, I think, $23 for the 2 days to enter my car, to race it, to be on the pit side. On a regular night, it was like $12. You can go out there and race your car. But when I first went out there was no guardrails, there was no fence. Like a person could sit in his lawn chair and be 10 foot away from the track. You can see people standing 3 or 4 feet away from the car when they're doing burnouts. Now, one of the reasons that happened because this track wasn't sanctioned. A sanctioned track is where you got to go by rules, you got to be a member, and they follow rules strict. So on a big name track, you wouldn't have been able to stand 3 foot away from a car while it's doing a burnout. One, parts are flying out from underneath it. Luckily, no one ever got hurt standing that close to cars, but it's just something else to think back that people actually did that. Just tons of people on the spectator side. Like I said, the spectators, I think, paid $5 to come in. You brought your own cooler in, your grills. I mean, people brought their kids out there, and grilled out. It was a cheap entertainment because I think kids under 12 got in free. So for a Saturday night back then, that was cheap entertainment for a family could come out and do that.
I'll be doing the announcing here for you this afternoon. We're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 cars here. So it'll be one of the biggest races that Lawrence Dragway has ever had. I've been racing here since 1974, been announcing since about 1982 here at Lawrence Dragway, and hopefully there'll be a lot more interesting races here, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy what you see here this afternoon. So sit back and relax and have a good afternoon of drag racing.
Yeah, I'm standing here today about where it started for me in 1974. Right here where the drag strip used to be. Where I'm standing at right now would have been your starting line. Where we're actually starting to see the track there was probably about halfway down on the 8th mile track. And as you went down the track, right here would have been your main grandstands right at the starting line. And they would have had a timing tower, which we'll just say was probably where that tree is. And that tower would have been the one where the guys were running the time clocks. They would oversee the track, make sure there wasn't any emergencies come up. They would announce your time. Yes, on the pit side, the grandstands wasn't as long as they were on the spectator side. So what you had is people parking their cars over here on this side, pit side, and then a lot of them would back their trucks up to where you see the guardrail post. There would be a fence there, and they would sit there in the back of their trucks, or they'd sit on lawn chairs. Same way over here. If you didn't want to sit in the bleachers, they had plenty of room for lawn chairs. You brought your own food, drinks if you wanted. Yeah, where we're standing right now is probably about 3/4 of the track length. So once we got across this road, this street here that they built, and on down to where the hay bales are. But the finish line was actually probably, I'm guessing, just on the other side of this road because it was an 8th mile track. So the finish line was actually there, and then once you got going, that's where it started to drop down, to go down the hill, take a sharp left. And like I said, you usually get almost 200 drivers on a big night. I think the night they had Don Garlis out here, I bet there was 400 spectators and probably 250 drivers. We had almost 700 people there that night. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you talk about an 8th mile track, as small as it was a big place on Saturday night. It kept a lot of people going in the summer. You couldn't wait for the springtime to get here, to come back out here. It's just amazing to see it now with all these trees growing up around it that you would never guess what went on here on Saturday nights. Now it's kind of neat. I missed it. Like I said, I did it for 10, 12 years, and just something I did every weekend in the summer. And I hated to see it go because once it went, the closest track was Kansas City or Manhattan, which meant, an over-hour drive, where here in Lawrence, I was only 15 minutes away. But no, like I said, in '86 was the last big race. A lot of people quit racing, a lot of people did other things, so you didn't have the same crowd. I mean, that's what it was all about. It was more about being with your buddies and having a good time than the racing part of it was all right, but the fun part was just being out there with them guys.